Hey there guys, welcome back to the Flora Garden Escape channel. If you are new here, we are happy to have you. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget guys to go ahead and hit that like and subscribe down below and that bell so that way you don't miss out on any new videos. Now you're probably wondering what I'm holding. If you've guessed tomato plant, you're right, because it is a tomato plant. But this is actually going to be a grape tomato plant. Now today we're not going to be doing any tours or going over any seedlings. Today we're going to talk about pruning our tomato plants from sizes like this and up. So let's go ahead and get into it, guys. Now as you guys can see, we do have several different seedlings here. This tray right here is going to be our grape tomatoes. I couldn't get the word out. Now with your grape tomatoes, as you guys can see here, we have our lower leaves down here and then our higher leaves up here. So there's going to be a few things you're going to want to do, especially with tomato seedlings this size, as these guys are actually going to be getting ready to be transplanted soon. And when we transplant these guys, we are going to bury them past these little leaves here. So when we go to transplant, we'll remove these little leaves and bury it up to here. So that way it has more of a root system and it's able to stay more stable into the ground, which is definitely going to help the tomato plant. Now another thing we're going to go ahead and do as well is we're going to remove these two leaves as well, because you don't want anything really close to the ground. If closer to the ground means it's more open to pests and diseases, and you definitely don't want that. So we'll also go through here and cut it. Now when we cut it, we're going to be doing it at a slope so that way it doesn't catch any diseases and things like that. Now that one just did not want to cut, but it's okay. Now I'm going to go over with you guys as well your leaves. So as you guys can see here, this leaf does show to have some damages, so we won't reuse the leaves into the fertilizer. So we'll put this in a pot or in a bucket to be removed out of here. Along with this, any leaves that show any kind of damages or anything like that, you'll definitely want to remove out of there. But if your leaves, and I'll show you a good example, if your leaves look like this and they have no diseases, no pests on them, what we would then go ahead and do, and I just had to overlook that, that looks like that's just a piece of bark there, but if you overlook it and it looks good, you can actually just reuse it back onto the ground and it'll fertilize your tomato plant's dirt. Now you're probably next wondering, well, is it different to each different variety of tomato plants? Your answer is no. You'll want to apply the same pruning methods to all your tomato plants. Different tomato varieties may require different types of soil, but the pruning process is going to be all the same. Alright guys, so now we're going to go ahead and move through here our row of tomato plants, and we're going to get ready to prune them from our smallest ones down here to even down to our biggest ones. So let's go ahead and dig into it. Alright guys, so as you guys can see, this is going to be the first one we're going to stop at. And as you look, you can see there's definitely some smaller limbs down there. And as you can see, there is some brown spots starting to show. So we're going to go ahead and cut that out. And we're going to remove this totally out of the garden. Now we're also going to go ahead and go through and cut these ones down here as well and remove them totally out of the garden as well. Because like I said guys, you definitely don't want these in your garden, especially if they're showing diseases. Now what I'm also going to do is I'm also going to come through here and remove this one as well, as I don't like how low it is to the ground. So we're going to remove it as well. And these guys are looking good. Looking beautiful, if I might add. Doesn't seem to be showing any kind of diseases. Does show some rocks sticking there. And we're going to be, hopefully here soon, we'll be able to come through here and apply some neem oil to these guys as well. Alright, so here we are again. We got some lower leaves. We're going to go ahead and cut these guys out as well and remove them totally out of the garden. As we have a bucket here, we're just going to remove them. And as they get taller, we're definitely going to keep the pruning process going. So let's go ahead and get these other. Alright, now as you guys can see, it's not so low to the ground,
but it's still low enough to where it can droop and possibly get bigger. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. And I'm also going to show you guys one more thing while we're here. And just cut it like that and just remove it totally out. Now, as you guys can see here, if you guys see here, that is going to be a sign of a slug or a pest that's been crawling on our tomato plants. So what we'll use for this is going to be our neem oil mixture, and this is going to help eliminate those pests. Now, when you're checking your tomato plants for pests, you always want to check underneath the leaves, because that's where everything's going to hide to take shelter. So that way you don't really see it, because they're going to really eat on your plant in the nighttime. And when they hide under the leaves, they're just getting a different angle of those leaves. So you always want to definitely be looking under your tomato plant's leaves. Let's go ahead and do the next few and get those guys trimmed up too. Alright, so here we are at our next one. As you guys can see, there's definitely a lot different things going on. So what I'm going to go through and do here is I'm going to remove this one and this one here. And we're going to actually do a lot of different cuttings from these guys. Just for the mere fact that we don't want anything growing close to the ground. Now, as you guys can see here, I'm going to bring you in. So if you guys look, this tomato plant is starting to create a side shoot. And with these side shoots, it's going to create more weight to another side. Now, yes, they will push out produce, but with this growing vertically, we want everything to be growing up instead of out. So we're definitely going to go ahead and remove this guy, and let's finish up trimming this guy up too. Alright, so we're just going to totally remove this. There it goes. Gonna remove this bottom one here. And then we are gonna come over to this one. Remove this shoot. And one thing with our pruning, we want to keep in mind the goal of this pruning is to help keep the airflow. You want tons and tons of airflow. The better the airflow, the better the tomato plant will grow. And also with doing your pruning, it's going to help push everything, all its nutrients and things like that, going up into your fruit, your leaves, for it to get bigger, wherever it's going to be able to push. So one thing to definitely keep in mind with pruning your tomato plants is that pruning it doesn't mean you're hurting it. Pruning it actually means that you're helping it direct its energy. You're helping it boost its growth, which is going to help it out in the long run. Now I'm going to leave this leaf up as it is long enough and far enough away from the ground. Now as it grows, we might come through here and clip it off at another time. But for right now, it's good how it is. So we're just going to leave this one be. But real quick, I see a limb. I want to cut off this other one as it's hanging really low to the ground. So I just wanted to go through and remove that out. Now I did leave my bucket behind, so I'm just going to leave this pile right here, and then we'll remove it here in just a minute because we're not done yet. Here we do have one of our beefsteak tomatoes. So we do have a lot of tangled up mess here. So what we're going to go through here and do today is we're actually going to go through here and trim all this up. And I'm going to show you a cool trick as well. So y'all are probably wondering what the cup is for. And I'm actually going to go ahead and explain it to you. So, with tomato plants, you don't necessarily have to keep pushing seeds to germinate to grow tomato plants. So let's say you get a package of seeds for $1.89, $2.89. Prices range, different prices at different places. And let's say you end up having only 10, maybe 15 seeds in that packet, which in a sense isn't enough, especially if not all of them germinate. Well, This trick is actually going to help you get more tomato plants out of just one tomato. And I'm going to show you how. So not only do we have our cup of water, but we also have our bucket. So as you guys can see, we have a chute here. And this chute is actually trying to push produce. But as you can see, it's not from our main chute, which is this chute right here, as it's much thicker. So what we're going to actually do here is we're going to actually come through here and we're going to cut this chute off. Now, with cutting this chute off, not only will this help create airflow, but this is also going to help not the produce, but help the tomato plant grow. Now, as you guys can see here, the little hairs at the bottom are going to be the vines, and what is also going to be the roots, not vines. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is cut this leaf off, and as you guys can see, we have some worms starting to feast on our tomato plant, so we're going to also remove him out of there as well. Alright, cut that. And we're also going to cut the lower leaves. And as you guys can see, they're pretty freaking good. No worms, no diseases. So we're going to throw him back down there. We're going to cut this off as well. This one is good. And now we're going to stick him in the water. And we're going to let him do his thing. And now we're going to come through here. And as you guys can see, we got a lot going on. So have tomatoes already on them, but this guy actually doesn't have anything going on him right now. So I am actually going to go ahead and come down here and cut this one off because he is a side shooter, so it's going to make it definitely bushier. So we're going to cut that whole one off. And I would put him in the cup, but he is way too heavy and way too big. So what we're going to do with him instead is we're going to cut a lot of this off. Cut the foliage off. Cut anything that's going to possibly produce fruit. Cut this off. And it does look like we're cutting a whole lot off, but you're going to be surprised at what we'll get at the end of this. And as you can see, it's pushing roots out. So we're going to also cut this side shoot here, because this is going to be another side shoot. So we're going to cut it off. And we can actually put this one in the water. And then we're going to cut this one. And that leaf is actually really good, so we're going to put it around that tomato plant, and we're going to cut this one. And there we go. Now we have a whole new tomato plant. Now with this one, with him being much bigger, we're going to do a little experiment, and we're going to put him in the ground. So let's close these up. We're going to bring him right over here. Move this out our way. This. Alright, gonna move this mulch back. There we go. And as you can see, there's some really good dirt down there underneath all this mulch. Now I've seen people do this to where they'll plant the tomato plant right back into the ground and it will push out those roots. So we're going to see over a week's time how this does and if the statement is actually true.
Action.
Alright, push that down some. And now, what we're also going to do we're also going to take a piece of bamboo stick, especially before it develops its roots, because you don't want to push any kind of stick down or anything after you've done transplanted in there, I'm going to go ahead and stick this in here as good as I can. And then I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to prop him up on here. And then what we'll do after a bit is I'll take some bird ties and tie him right up there. So that way he has something to hold on to. Now let's go ahead and go back over to this one. We're going to finish cleaning him up. Let's see. We got another side shoot growing here. We're going to cut it out. And we're going to cut that leaf off. Going to put that in the water. There we go. We're going to cut this one off here. Throw him in the bucket. Alright, and that one looks good, so we're not going to cut any more off of him. He's got plenty of room to breathe. Alright, let's move on down to here. Now we're going to step off course here, because as you guys can see, this is what happens when you don't have a stake for your tomato plant and when they start to overlap and get super heavy. So what I'm going to now have to do with this guy is I'm going to put a stake in here and kind of have it come out to here, so that way I'm not hurting any of the roots and he can be brought back over here away from that one. You can toss that stake in, yes. Alright, we're going to put him, now I'm going to be careful here not to crush any of these little blooms that it's got going up here. And I'm just going to tie him off, and I'm not going to do it super tight, so that way the stem itself has room to grow. And I'll check on these pretty periodically to make sure that it's not damaging the stem itself. Alright, so that is done. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to come through here and prune them up. So we're going to cut this leaf off, check for any damages. It looks good. Throw him down. We are actually going to cut this side shoot off because this is going to be considered like a sucker. And he's definitely too small to really replant, so we're just going to... We have another one coming out this way. I won't necessarily keep this guy on here because he is a side shoot and will take up the energy from this main stem. Because as you can look, it's kind of like an armpit in between here. And this is going to be considered a side shoot. Now I don't want any side shoots, especially since we're growing vertically. So I'm going to cut this guy off here. Check him for any diseases. He looks good. And then I'm going to come through here and I'm going to cut him off just like that. And there we go. Now we have a whole nother tomato plant. And with this guy, I'm actually going to keep him. Even though he looks a little crooked and that, you got to think majority of him is going to be in the ground anyways. So we're going to cut this piece off. And I am leaving some of these leaves in different spots of our tomato plants, so that way all our tomato plants are getting something from the leaves. So it's like a feeder. Put him in the water. Alright, and now this guy here has a whole side shoot, but with him he already is showing tomato plants. Now what I may end up doing with him, because the stem is so low to the ground, it's definitely more open to pests, diseases, and things like that. What we're going to do is once these tomatoes right here push out and they become fully ripe and ready to be harvested, I'll come through here and cut this guy out, so that way it'll direct more up and direct it to the main stems that we have up near the top. So I'm going to keep him, but for the meantime, I'm going to come through here and cut off these suckers. These little ones are going to be... Did y'all see that? That was a butterfly. That's going to be our pollinators. That's always a great sign to see when you see butterflies in the garden. So I'm cutting all the suckers here. And this way, we'll remove the chances of pests and things like that. And then we got some on this side I'm going to go ahead and remove. And remember, you want to cut at an angle, so that way you're not leaving it open to even more pests and diseases. And that way, when it rains or anything, the water can't just sit there and cause diseases right there where you've made that cutting at. Alright, so this guy is looking good. And keep in mind, guys, oh, before I say that, we got one more here. I don't want another side shoot. So we're going to side shoot him off, and we're just going to stick him in there. Alright, let's see here. Alright, so, give me that. So if you look here, you can see how the bread tie is starting to get into that stem. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm now going to need to come in here and loosen this up for him. So that's what we're going to do now. Now, as you guys can see here, it did leave an indent, but now it is able to breathe, which is what we definitely want. Side sucker, I'm going to go ahead and remove him off here too. He's a side shoot. We don't want him in there. And we've pretty much got enough side shoots right there off this one guy. So I'm going to go ahead and grab him, and he does show a little bit of signs of diseases and that. So we're going to put him in the bucket. And here's another one we're going to cut off. That one looks good. Feed it back. Now this one is going to be a little trickery, but we can definitely make it work. There we go. Looks like it's going in the bucket. Alright, good. And this one's definitely low to the ground, so I'm going to remove it as well here. Like I said, we don't want anything really low to the ground, as it's more open to pests. Now these are starting to cluster up. I'm going to just remove this guy since it's behind this wood here. And you can go in the bucket. Now one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to trim too much and your tomato plants are getting a lot of sun. That's one thing you definitely don't want to do. Alright, now as you guys can see, this is going to be our beefsteak. Our beefsteak is so beautiful. This is actually going to be right here, our main stem. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to actually train a lot of this back, and it's going to look like we're going to be taking a lot of cuttings from it, but we really won't be taking that many. And let's check this out. So this is actually pushing off tomato plants as well, but I'm really worried that it's going to cause too much weight. So what we're going to do is I'm going to actually totally remove it. And as I look here, this is actually splitting. So we're definitely going to go ahead and remove it out of here, because that's going to be one thing we don't want, and it's going to be open to pests and diseases. And we're going to get him out of here. He's all tied up. I tied him up in here good too. Alright, there we go. Alright, and there it is. Now, since he's pushing out roots, what I can do is I can remove these lower leaves. Just like this. And then remove this one right here, and remove these up here. And since we have our digger out, and it looks like these are pretty good, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw them in the bucket. Put those in there.
What do the roots look like that's pushing out?
So the roots look like this right here. They're really bumpy, and if you see there's hairs on the tomato plants, those are actually the beginning of the roots. So that's going to be what you'll see that's going to be pushing out of the tomato plant. And when it does that, just put a little dirt, and it'll be more of a root system for that tomato plant. Now what I'm going to do is I'm gonna put him on this side, down here.
Do you need to use cloning powder or anything?
Nope, no cloning powder, really nothing extra, because the soil is so dark already. It's already really rich, which is really amazing, especially with us having sandy soil. So we really don't need to add anything. The roots are going to sprout out throughout here, especially since they're going to be sensing the water. They're going to be sensing that nutrients that's in the ground. So it really won't need anything extra to help boost it out. Now you can add it and it'll help boost them out even more. I've seen it done like that, but that isn't what we're going to be doing here today. Now some people will also actually add in, will actually turn their roots to the side to where the roots grow more out on top of the, more near the top of the soil, to help get a better yield as well. But in a sense, you can do this especially if you don't have a big area. But I preferably don't like to do it because we have a lot of space, and on top of that, we are trying to maximize our garden area. So putting in the roots to the side isn't something we do, but it is something you can do. And I'm also going to cut this leaf off here because it is really way too close to the ground. There we go. Alright, and he's replanted back in there, and I'll put this leaf in the bucket. Now, you can go about watering them. You should really go about watering the tomato plants if you do it like that. So that way they get plenty of water. But for us, thank the heavens above, we are actually getting ready to have some rain. So the rain is actually going to water those plants for me. So I'm looking through here, and if you look really down underneath all these leaves, you'll see more side shoots trying to come out. What I'm going to go through here and do is I'm going to remove these side shoots because I definitely don't want them in here. Remove that one. That one's okay. We're going to remove this bread tie here. Well, actually, I'm just going to put that there and pull that down. Alright, this is really too low to the ground, so we're going to cut that off. And this is another side shoot. I'm going to remove it. That's going to be another side shoot that we don't want, and we can even go through here, cut this off, cut this, and cut this to where we only have that top flower piece.
Let me get your shovel. Oh. You need to put those in there.
And we are going to repurpose it. Doesn't have any diseases on it. Cut this one right here. Yeah, that's good. And one thing you're also going to want to check for is you're also going to want to make sure your plants, your leaves aren't stacking on top of each other, because when they do that, they'll actually be creating a cluster and it won't allow wind flow. So this is another side shoot here, but it's going to be a little trickery because of how it's growing. So once these are done, we'll probably remove that altogether. Because I don't like how it's there. But what I will do is come through here, cut this leaf off, and cut that sucker out. And this one doesn't seem to be doing anything, so we're going to cut it out as well because I don't like it against that. Alright, and we got a lot overlapping. So I'm looking here. That's gonna be that shoot. Alright, and shoot isn't doing anything. That's got tomatoes on it. Alright, and that one does too. We're going to cut this off. And you also want to be careful with how much you cut off, because if you cut too much off, you could be creating a create a whole nother cover that it's providing to your tomato plants. And you don't want your tomatoes to get sun spurs and things like that. So I'm going to cut another sucker here, and we're not going to add it into the water. And as you can see, it's starting to open up more beautifully, and it's getting a lot much better airflow. Now when you don't prune, I'm going to show you a good example because this one has it on it. When you don't prune, you get a white powdery mildew on the leaves, and this can spread to all your other plants. So this is another reason why we come through here and prune. Now as you guys can see, it looks a lot better. We have tons of airflow now, and if the tomato plant will love the tomato clippings at the bottom, so it's getting nutrients at the same time. And I see another sucker here. We are going to cut it out as well. There we go, and it's good, so it can go in that pile. And like I said, guys, I create a whole nother pile for those that need to be removed here. And we're going to put this in our bucket as well. And I'm going to bring our cup here along with. Cut him out. He's not doing anything for our plant. And then that's going to be that main stem for that one. He's going to need to be tied up after a bit. This is another one we're going to go ahead and remove. Alright, and I'm also going to remove, hey, wind is definitely picking up, so it's definitely going to be raining here soon. So I definitely got to get all this pruned up before it starts coming down like no tomato. Alright, there we go. Definitely looks a lot better than what it was looking like before. I'm actually going to keep that there for now because it is covering those tomatoes up there. But I am going to remove this one, and we're going to remove this leaf here, and then that'll open up this one, and that's good there. And then once this shoot right here, because I topped it off here at the very top, I'm going to keep those there for now. But once it finishes up pushing out everything, it'll then be removed as well. And then also this side shoot as well that's coming off to the side, because this one right here is going to be our center one. Even though it looks like this is actually our taller one. A little weird there. Alright, so now let's get on to some coverage here. I've got water in my shoe. Alright, so we are going to cut this. Remove this one here because it's another side shoe. This one is actually also going to be a whole nother side shoot. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it as well. Alright, and then we're going to remove this side shoot along with this one. We're really going to open this guy up. Alright, good. And I'm going to remove this one. There we go, much better. Thankfully, I've been keeping up with the pruning on this one, so I don't have to prune so much on them. I'm also going to remove this side shoot because it's going to take up a lot of energy from the tomato plant itself. So that'll help. Good, much better. Definitely much better. Alright, last tomato plant here. Gotta watch out for the watermelons that we planted in here. Alright. So we got a side shoot here. We're going to cut off. We got this side shoot. We're gonna totally remove. Alright. And we're gonna remove this one. Looks like some powdery mildew is starting to build up on some of these, so it's a good thing we're coming through here and pruning it and cutting them out because we don't want any diseases. Cut that guy out of there. Alright, and we're gonna remove this one. Here's another side shoot. We're gonna take him off because he isn't producing anything and is only taking up nutrients. Good, good, good. Very good. We are going to remove this side shoot because he isn't going to be doing anything for us. Alright, we're going to remove this guy. Open up that there. Alright, let's move up to the top here. I think with this one, we're going to remove this because it is showing some powdery mildew there. And we're also going to remove this one here because it does show powdery mildew as well. So remove that there. Alright, perfect, good. Alright, now let's move over to this side and let me grab my bread ties. We don't have to tie this one up. Alright, so we are going to cut this. Remove this one here because it's another side shoe. This one is actually also going to be a whole another side shoot. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it as well. Alright, and then we're going to remove this side shoot along with this one. And we're really going to open this guy up. Alright, good, good, good. And I'm going to remove this one. There we go, much better. Thankfully, I've been keeping up with the pruning on this one, so I don't have to prune so much on them. I'm also going to remove this side shoot because it's going to take up a lot of energy from the tomato plant itself. So that'll help. Good, much better. Definitely much better. Alright, last tomato plant here. Gotta watch out for the watermelons that we planted in here. Alright. So we got a side shoot here. We're gonna cut off. We got this side shoot. We're gonna totally remove. Alright. And we're gonna remove this one. Looks like some powdery mildew is starting to build up on some of these, so it's a good thing we're coming through here and pruning it and cutting them out because we don't want any diseases. Cut that guy out of there. Alright, and we're going to remove this one. Here's another side shoot. We're going to take him off because he isn't producing anything and is only taking up nutrients. Good, good, good. Very good. We are going to remove this side shoot because he isn't going to be doing anything for us. Alright, we're going to remove this guy. Open up that there. Alright, let's move up to the top here. I think with this one, we're going to remove this because it is showing some powdery mildew there. And we're also going to remove this one here because it does show powdery mildew as well. So remove that there. Alright, perfect, good. Alright, now let's move over to this side and let me grab my bread ties. We don't have to tie this one up. He is just going out of control. So,
Is this your last one?
him. Yeah, I gotta do this one.
Oh.
With him, I'm actually gonna start getting him trained to go more up. Actually gonna twist. this around here. And I'm also going to, because this is going to be one main stem here, but I am going to remove this one. Nope, take it back, switch the plan. So I'm going to remove this guy here. Remove him. And then take this one, tie it up here. With this little thread tie we just took off that other one.
And you need to take a minute break so I can take care of Judas.
Okay. And we are gonna put this guy up here. And there we go. Now, just cut this off. That I'm getting eat on. We're gonna remove this one. And we're gonna remove these little ones. So that way, we have less to worry about. I'm gonna remove the sucker. And that's gonna be it for that one. We got plenty of airflow. So that's the next one.
Okay, your big head's often in and out of these, so I don't know what to tell you about that. Keep your big head out the frame is all I can tell you. Because I get tired of moving around. I move around so much because your big head's in the way. Mom, don't get my big head. Well, how in the hell? Okay, then you're going to be fussing at me because I'm moving around. All right.
I'd rather you move around. Better angle.
Trying to, anyway.
Alright, so this one, we're going to cut this side shoot off here. Untangle some of that mess, and since this leaf isn't damaged, I'm going to put it back down there. Don't let me trip on bricks. Alright, that's good there. We're actually going to remove this one here. And put this one in the bucket. Looks good, much better. Alright, not so much of a cluster. I do want to remove this one here though. Bring in some more airflow. This actually looks good, so I'm going to just throw it back down in there. Alright. Much better. We got airflow. We got some new growth gonna happen. Make sure nothing's dangling. And one thing I definitely always will recommend is look at your tomato plants at a different angle. You might see something that you will need to tend to help the tomato plant grow better. And that's one thing I definitely do is I definitely look at them at different angles. So that way I can see exactly what I need to tend to, how I can help the tomato plant grow better. And from what I'm seeing at this angle here, there is a few things we do need to adjust. Looks like this is starting to droop more than I would like for it to, so I definitely need to tie that up. And what's also caught my eye here as well is that there is more side shoots. So I'm trying to eliminate here the bushiness of the tomato plant, as we are still wanting it to grow up. So what I'm gonna definitely do is I'm definitely gonna have it come up to here, so that way it'll start climbing up. And this way we still have some airflow going on and it's not overlapping as bad. Saved my life. I can't keep up with my bread tie reel, but extra dandy bread tie right over here. from one we took off over there at a different tomato plant. So I'm just gonna loop this guy through this other bread tie we have here. Grab a hold of this, and I'm not gonna tie it on super tight. We are just gonna do it nice and good, so that way the tomato plant will start trellising up and will grow upwards, because we are growing vertically. Perfect, much better, not so much of blockage, which is nice. Leaves are having plenty of airflow, which is even better. One thing we may do here, we're gonna actually remove this one, so that way those two weren't overlapping each other. Now as you see here, I'm gonna show you here, this leaf is actually really close to the ground. I'm gonna actually come through here and cut it off as well. So that way we have nothing coming to the bottom. And this is why I say, look at your tomato plants at a different angle. See if there's any other way you can help them get a better foliage and better growth. And that's what I'm doing now, is just looking at it at a different angle. And you'll see me bounce around from tomato plants we've already adjusted and things like that, as I'm just looking at it at a whole new angle. Looks good. May want to attend to this one over here a little bit more. I just want to go through here and make sure we got plenty of airflow going on our tomato plants. I'm going to cut this out here, as it's a no bueno. Okay, cut this one here. I don't want it growing into the tomato plant. Much better. Good. No overlapping. I don't like seeing any overlapping, so that's where I kind of cut the tomato plant out. Now with this one, I'm actually going to change the angle of it and come over here with it. So I'm going to get a bread tie and kind of tie it up over here. Oh, thank you. As she steps in the puddle of water.
Hey, at least my feet are cool.
Yeah, and it's not too hot out here anyway, so it's not like it's freezing cold water.
No, it does feel good though.
Hey, it's rainwater too, so it's not like you're stepping in chemicals.
Yeah, it's not stagnant either.
Alright, and I'm not gonna make it super tight. Like I keep saying, don't make them super tight, so that way you're not suffocating it. Alright, much better, and I'm just gonna cut this leaf off here. There we go. Much better. And that is gonna help bring in more. And those leaves look good, so we'll just throw that down there. There we go. That one is done. Looks good. Alright. Last one, please. Just gonna help reposition it just a little bit here. There we go. Much better. Alright. So I'm not seeing anything hanging low to the ground. A whole lot of diseases either throughout here, and that's one thing we want to eliminate out of our garden for sure. One thing that helps controls pests and gets rid of pests is going to be your neem oils, your BTs, things like that. That's going to really help eliminate and remove the diseases that you'll see in your garden. So I really recommend that. But that is looking good. That's going to create coverage for these little tomato plants, so I'm not going to remove it. So everything is looking good. Can't see anything else we need to trim off. Looks good. Alright, I'll take it. Because I'm going to get a different angle. Alright guys, so now here is our tomato plants. They are all pruned up. They're looking good. I think the only last thing I need to do is go down there and fix that stake right there that's kind of leaning there. So I'm going to go ahead and fix that stake, but this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a tour of some of the tomato plants up close and personal of some of the tomatoes that we are having grown. So let's start off on our beefsteak. As you guys can see here, these are going to be our beefsteak. And this is actually looks like it's a 2-in-1 beefsteak, which is definitely interesting. And as you can see, they're definitely getting plump, still green, but they're definitely going to be working their way to start making their colors, and they'll eventually look like that there. But as you can see, we got tons of tomatoes blooming, coming out here. And this is definitely what we want to see. But they are looking good. Beautiful. Can't wait to eat them. And they're going to love what we did here today of pruning them up and getting them all cleaned up. And they're going to enjoy that airflow that they're going to get. Which is going to be just amazing. Alright, my Florida Garden Escape channel, thank you for joining, and until next time, deuces guys!